want. Okay, so we're going. So yes, like Ty was just bringing up, there are many ways to create an image. You can create your image digitally, which is kind of can be the most streamlined way, because eventually we're going to be like printing it out. So that can make it easier to like keep it clean and everything. So you can prepare your image digitally. You can also hand draw your image. Um,
Just like a little stencil thingy thing.
oh
I
yeah.
have a more black nose.
Mhm.
And then I just kind of just like did it over it. You can also, I mean, if you just know how to really, or if you're artistic and know how to draw, you can draw directly onto a transparency with a black Sharpie and it will work in the same operation that printing out a digital will.
Yeah, so you can draw directly on the transparency. You can also hand draw an image and then like scan it or take a picture of it, upload it, and then you might have to do a little bit of extra processing to like clean it up. And I think I will use your image, Catherine, as an example of that. We won't get it all the way to a finished product today. But just to show you that there are ways to like make your image work for screen printing. So basically just to like help you conceptually understand the point of what we're doing. Um, we are going to be burning the screens. So we put emulsion on the screen. It's like a flat layer. We'll talk more about that next week. And that is like photosensitive. So when you expose it to UV light, the emulsion hardens and will become more solid on the screen. And so basically the concept of creating a screen is you want to block out all of the light where you want your image to be on the screen, because so we use a transparency like the one Ty has, and so for this one, like the light will be going on the screen but it will not be passing through where that little fairy is. So the emulsion behind that little fairy will not dry, and so then you can wash it out and it will leave behind a like stencil that you can then print your ink through, and the ink goes through. The screens are made of like mesh, um, and the ink will go right through them. So the goal is we want to make like a very dark black image on our transparency to make sure we're blocking all the light. You can experiment with like different like opacities and grayness, but it's just less consistent. There are ways to do like shading, which is through creating like a bitmap or basically like having little dots, like how they do in like comic books, to create like the illusion of shading, but actually everything is all pure black or blank, right? And so I'll show you like some examples of these things. But that's basically the concept. Do y'all have like any questions? We'll walk you through every single step, but if y'all have any questions right now. Cool. So then I'm going to, where'd my Zoom go? It's gone. I'm going to share my screen so that you can all follow along on Zoom. And as I'm going through this,
Can I just share real quick?
yeah, of
Sometimes it's
course.
hard to not like to hear it, but not visualize it. So this is someone's screen. They put their transparency over this. We expose it to the light for a certain amount of minutes, certain amount of seconds. And then when we wash it out, everything but the design washes out, basically, or doesn't wash out. And then when you're able to print through it, you print your design, if that makes more sense, like in a visual context. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ty. All right, so we see, cool. That's what my screen looks like. So I sent you this process guide if you want to follow along on your own. It also just helps me to go through it. So let's see what it says. So, yeah, a lot of the shortcuts, I also have a Mac, so I'll be using Mac shortcuts. It looks like we have a lot of Macs, but if you have Windows, some of the shortcuts are on here. They just might be like slightly different. So yeah, and you will have access to this guide forever. So like even for me, when I go through to prepare an image, it still helps me to use this guide. So yeah, and then these are links to the video that Vian made from last cohort. I will also share the recording for this cohort. So here we go. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a new file. So I'll go File, New in Photoshop. And then our transparencies, we do have different sizes of transparencies, but the ones that we generally use right now are 8.5 by 11. So we want our file, our canvas to be 8.5 by 11 inches. That's just like a standard paper size. And you always want to make sure you title your project when you're starting it, because I mean, I know my ass, I lose things. So I will call this first one Stephanie print, because I'm gonna work on Stephanie's image first. And then you want to check your resolution. The resolution is important because so the screen, like the mesh, you can kind of think of it as like little pixels. Like there are lines that go vertically and lines that go horizontally. And so like the space in between is where the ink gets pushed through. And there are different mesh counts, different thread counts for the screens if you want like more detail, less detail. And so like kind of the balance is like a lower thread count means that you can push more ink through. It means that your images can be much more saturated, but you also lose some of that fine detail. So a higher mesh count is the like converse of that, where you can achieve finer detail, but it's a little bit harder to get like very saturated, big block print images. So it kind of depends on your design. For a Stephanie's, I think you'd want to go somewhere in the middle and y'all will see the image, because it's not super finely detailed, but I think there are some more like finer lines in there. But so our resolution 300 is a good standard that will work for everything. You don't want your resolution to be too high because you're gonna lose a lot of those details anyways. And you don't want it too low because you don't want it to look pixelated. And then you also want to set your color mode to grayscale, because like we're creating the transparency, the ink is where you can add the color. So we're just trying to make something that is black. And so it's easier to tell if you're just in grayscale mode. And then background can stay as white, everything else can stay the same, and I will create my canvas. So why is it not letting me scroll? Bruh. Because normally it lets me scroll over, but I think I need to make this smaller. Okay. There we go. Now I can scroll around. So there it depends on your computer. On Macs, like you use the regular scroll and you can scroll around, and then you can pinch in and out to zoom. Other ways to zoom is you could do Command and then plus to zoom in, or minus to zoom out. And I think for Windows, you do Control and then plus to zoom in, Control and minus. So first we want to set guides along each edge. We want to have margins 0.25 inches, because that's like where our printing area is. If it goes beyond that, it might cut off on the transparency. So mine are already on, but just in case they're not on, you go to this top menu here and you go to View, go to Rulers, and then just make sure the checkbox is on. Mine is already on. And then once you have the rulers on to create your guidelines, you're going to click, well, first you're going to hold Shift. And what Shift generally does on Photoshop is it will make your, whatever you're doing, like lock into like nice numbers. So if you're doing the rulers and you hold Shift, then your guidelines will always be set at like different eighths of an inch instead of just anywhere, which is really helpful. It's the same for like rotating. If you're rotating and you hold Shift, it will go 15 degrees each time. So things like that. So I'm gonna hold down Shift, click on my ruler, and this magic little line will appear, and I can drag it up and down wherever I want. And I want to set 1/4 inch margins on each side of my paper. So I'm gonna do 0.25 inches there. I click on the ruler again, drag it down here. And since it's 11 inches, we want 10.75. And then I'll do these two sides as well. So 0.25 here. And since it's 8.5, we want 8.25. Boom. Okay. Also, as I'm going, I know I'm going through it quickly just because of time, but please, if you're confused, if you have questions, stop me, let me know. So there we go. We have our margins set. So now let's talk about layers. So over here in the bottom right corner, I have my layers section. You can also do channels and paths, which we'll talk about a little bit. But layers are exactly what they sound like. You can add like different layers to your image. Higher layers will cover up the lower layers underneath. You can also toggle like view on and off, just not for the background. The background is usually locked. Um, and then you can also like merge and combine, and we'll be working around with layers a little bit. So you'll see some more things, you'll get more comfortable. Yeah, so for this, I already set mine in grayscale mode, but in case you already created your file and, oh my God, I'm sorry, I spelled your name wrong. In case you already create your file and you didn't set it in grayscale or you're not sure, you can always go up here to image, check mode, and there are different options here. For working with the image, we just want to start in grayscale. There are a couple other options that I'll show you, like other things that we can do. This part on the guide just talks about like different shortcuts. Shortcuts can make, especially in Photoshop, there are so many tools and so many things that you can do that it can be really helpful to set shortcuts for the things that you do often. So these are some of the ones that VN uses. Yeah, and if you go up here to edit, and there should be shortcuts on keyboard shortcuts here, it will like bring up this whole menu. You can add, you can edit, you can change them. But I'm not gonna get into all of that right now. So we have our canvas ready. Now we're ready to make some art. So I have Stephanie's image downloaded. You can copy or paste the image in. For me, I never know where anything is on my computer, so I just do this, and I'm not gonna use the PDF. I export it as a JPEG. Wait, did it cut off? No. Okay. So I'm just going to drag it right onto mine. Actually, no, I'm not gonna do that. First, I'm going to make a new layer. Sometimes it will create a new layer, but sometimes Photoshop does weird stuff. So I'm gonna use my shortcut. I press Shift Command N to create a new layer. And I'll call this layer art because I'm gonna put art in it. And now I will drag and drop the image in and it will bloop right in there. And then it gives you the option to transform your image before, like when you put it in. And so I can already see my image is gonna get cut off over here and maybe even over here. So I want to make it a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna hold shift, because sometimes when you don't hold shift and you transform, it does like this. We don't want to change the proportions of our image. We just want to make it a little bit smaller. So when you hold shift, it locks the proportions. So I'll move it in so nothing's getting cut off there. Move it in a little bit here. There, nothing is getting cut off. And then once I'm happy with it, I will press enter. And now I have my layer with my image there. I already named my layer. If you just like copied and pasted the image in and it creates a new layer, you can always rename it by double clicking on the name here. So if I want to add a happy face, can do that. And then you can always transform it again. If you are not happy with how it's looking, you can either press Command T, or I'm already on the transform tool, so I can just click on it and then I could transform it some more. And then the same thing I was telling y'all, like if you want to rotate it, I could rotate it whatever. Or if I want to rotate it like exactly 90 degrees, I would hold shift and then it will go in increments of 15. So it will like lock in. So if I wanted to like make it much bigger, I could do it like that, but I don't because I just want my image to be this size for now. So I press enter because I like those changes. Yeah.
Does it matter how centered it is on this canvas?
Um, Not necessarily, because you're still going to be transferring it onto a screen later. So if your transparency is not centered, it will be okay. I think it's easier if it is mostly centered because that way it's easier to see like when you're putting your transparency onto the canvas, like it's very easy to center that. I mean, onto the screen. But if it's not perfectly centered, you'll be okay.
Yeah, gotcha.
Cool. So, yeah, that's like transforming, adding, creating layers. Any questions about that stuff? Yeah.
When, for the transfer for this screen, because I know that, you mentioned about like reuse screens and stuff like that, but if we had like, I don't know, maybe like two images that we wanted to put on screen and just like tape over one and then like use the other one, to like, is that something that you would recommend? Or just kind of like just one per screen? I've just seen other things where some screen printers will do like multiple on
Oh,
one so that they can like save this or
yeah.
use one screen for multiple.
Mhm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's recommended or not.
That's interesting. I think definitely it saves the screen,
Yeah.
which is helpful. I think like the concern with that, I guess, would be that it seems like it would be really easy to make mistakes, you know, for your, if you want to print one image that's just in the corner for your ink to like bleed through one of the other ones, you can put tape over them to block them off. So you could make it work. Generally it's easier if you just do one image per screen. And we have lots of screens and we're actually about to get more screens too. So, and you can just like wash them out and reuse them. So like, you know, there's pros and cons. I think generally it's easier to just have one image per screen.
That's helpful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. Yeah, any other questions? Cool. So we're gonna talk about levels. So what I can see in this image is um these this stuff is not black because the original image was actually like a kind of like dark red maroon color, right? So when I put it in grayscale, it's not pure black. And so when we print that out, um you know, it's not going to be consistent how much light we'll get through. So like this may not look clean once we burn it onto the screen and then try to print on it. So we are going to make everything black. And the way that we do that is through levels. So let's see. Yes,
Will we be able to get some help doing this?
of
when we-
course.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, I will be sending you, yeah, I will be sending you this guide and the videos and everything. And I encourage y'all to try it out on your own. It's really good to struggle through this a little bit because it helps you learn a lot about how to use these programs and about how to like create art digitally. But yeah, we're definitely available for support. And we will have time, like we should have time before next cohort if anyone wants to come in early and get extra help. Also, since you asked that question, I just want to tell you like a little bit about the process that we're gonna go through for the cohort. So next week we're going to be putting emulsion onto the screens to get them ready to be burned. And then the week after that, we're actually gonna be burning the screens. So ideally, by next Sunday, we will all have our digital images prepared and ready to print on the transparency so that, because they don't print super fast, so that we can start printing them, getting them ready for week 3 when we burn things. So that's your homework is to either figure out or create the image that you're going to want to print. And for this cohort, we're only going to be doing one screen each. So pick like one color, like one block color image that you want to do. And I'll show you like the halftones so you can have like shading, but it's all going to be one color. And then hopefully by next week, you can come with try to do this process over the next week. Okay. And if you have questions, I'm gonna create a Signal group at the end of this class. You got our emails. Feel free to reach out. And then are you,
Process on Photoshop.
yes, or GIMP,
Okay.
because GIMP is free if you're able to access Photoshop.
It's a free trial that maybe we can
Yes,
access
if
later.
yes, if you haven't used Photoshop, there's a 7-day free trial, which guess what? Sunday's in 7 days. So you could get your whole image done. Yeah, and are you gonna be here or before cohort on next Sunday?
Yeah,
in
so I'll
case-
be able to help, and then I think I'm gonna go into the computer lab and try to make sure that we have Photoshop access there, so that if you do have
Pretty dope.
any things that you need help with, or just like any finalizations that need to happen, we can do it here physically. Cause I know like especially the color rich black, that can't happen on GIMP. It needs to happen on Photoshop. Like if that's the last portion that needs to happen, we can do it here. And then we can, send it back to your computer and print it at our printer.
Yes, I will also be here 1 to 4 next Sunday. I will just simultaneously be doing my jewelry studio, but I have a co-facilitator and they're mostly running it next week, so I can also like support with that as well. So yes, but try to do it on your own.
I would actually really, really recommend, especially the process guide is actually really, really beautifully written for like step by step, like even going back and be like, okay, hold on. I
Mhm.
must have did this step wrong. It's
Right.
really, really beautifully written. So I would definitely encourage everybody to try on their own too, to get that done.
Also I shared it with y'all in comment mode because like everything in the shop, this is also a work in progress. So if there's a part that's confusing, you can like add a comment and be like, what does this mean? Or if you think something is missing, be like, I think you should clarify this, or like this step is also helpful. So that we can continue to add and update. So yes, let's talk about levels. Levels is where we make everything nice and purely black or white. So this image, since this one was made digitally, is going to be very easy. I will also show you a little bit of an example on Catherine's image because it was hand drawn and taken a picture of. So it's a little bit harder to get the levels to where you want them to be, but I think that will also be a good example to let you learn like what things will be easy for screen printing, what things will make it more difficult. So the best way to do that is to add an adjustment layer. You can adjust the levels of the image directly, but then like the only way to go back is Control Z. If you add a adjustment layer, then you can always just turn it off if you realize you don't like it. So we're gonna do it that way. So we go up here to window, and then we want to make sure the check is next to adjustments. Mine is off right now, so I'll turn it on. And then boom, we got adjustments over here. And this gives you lots of different adjustments that you could make. But for now, we're just going to focus on levels. So right here, this one that looks like a little like graph, like a histogram type of thing is our levels. So I'm going to click on that. Boom. Okay, and see when I click on that, it creates this adjustment layer. So it's a layer above the image, which I can, well, I didn't do anything yet, but I can turn it on and off. And so we are going to mess around with these sliders to get everything to perfectly be black. So the way that these work is the one on the bottom sets the black point. So if I raise it up, that's gonna make everything darker because all the pixels at and below this point are gonna get pushed to black. If I change the white point, that's gonna do the exact opposite. And because this is a digital image, you see very nice, like this bump here is the red where they made their art in that color, and this bump here is the white, which is the background. So this slider is not really gonna do anything. I guess it does a little bit. Yeah, but once I go past here, boom, it's gone, right? And then there's also the gray one, which adjusts like the midpoint, which can be helpful if your image has more like halftones or something. For this one, this is just like more line art, so we want to just push everything to be pure black. So I can bring this black one all the way up here. And we don't lose anything with this one because it is like much more straight, like it doesn't change the way it looks, it just makes it darker, right? So there we go. That is black. So yes.
If I would have made this in like black, we could have skipped this step, for example, or no?
Like if you did like all with black on Procreate, potentially I would still check your levels just to make sure that everything is black. But I think you would be fine. Yeah. Because there is going to be another step that I'll show you at the end where we're going to transform it into what's called color rich black, which is like the most darkest black you can make. So you would be doing that step anyways, but I would still check the levels and just adjust, slide them around a little bit just to make sure it doesn't really change. Just to be sure. So, I think I'm gonna show you how to do the color rich black step with this one because it's gonna be very straightforward. And then I'll go back and I'll talk about like cleaning up and denoising because this image is already very clean. We don't really have to do these steps. So I can skip down to the end. And this step is a little bit confusing. But it's very important to make sure that the printer like prints your image dark enough on the transparency. So basically the way that printers work is that they print in CMYK, which means that they use cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And don't know why black is K, but yeah, those like they use those ink cartridges to create the image. And so like it will print at different levels of those to create different colors or different shades or whatever. But because we just want like a solid black image, we just want our printer to just dump all 4 of these at 100% for the whole image. So it will be like very solid, very dark, no holes, nothing. So to do that, we create what is called color rich black. On Photoshop, we basically like set our color to be at 100% for all of those different levels. So that it will print nicely. So first, so we'll follow these steps here. So how to do it? First you just save your Photoshop file. So I'll just save it as a Photoshop file. So because we are going to do different things to it that are gonna maybe fuck it up. I mean, we won't fuck it up, but it's possible to fuck it up. So you want to have your original one saved. Just in case you want to go back to that. And then this time we're gonna save it as a JPEG. And we're gonna use that JPEG to do our color rich black step. So I should be able to do save as, but sometimes it makes me export. Okay, cool. So I save it as a JPEG. And I'll call the same thing, but this time I'll fix your name. Cool. So I'm going to save. And then you want to keep your image quality high. Because you don't want it to get compressed too much. You want to keep like the quality that you have in your Photoshop file. So I will just save it like this. All right, now I'm going to make, oh no. Okay, we only have 10 minutes for this, but I think I can just make a new Zoom link after. Yeah, I just don't know if we'll finish everything, but let's try. So, all right, so now I'm going to make, it says close out all of the windows. You can also just make a new file. So I'm gonna make a new, we wanna make sure we have the same dimensions going on, same resolution, same everything. And I'll call this Stephanie CRB for color rich black. So I'll create that. Cool. Now you are going to put that JPEG that we made on here. So I'm going to do the same way I did before. I'm going to create a new layer. So I do Command Shift N to create a new layer, and no, I'm not gonna call that, I'll call this art. And then I'm going to put the image right in here. So I just like to drag and drop. There are many ways you can do this. Which one was that one? The black one that I made. So I'll just put it in here, and it should, when you put it in, like if you drag and drop or copy and paste, it should just come up at the same exact dimensions it was in, which it did. So I'm just not going to adjust that. I'm just going to leave it and press enter. So now we're gonna do a lot of steps that are kind of confusing, like to see them all, but I'll try to explain why they all work. But first you just gotta trust me. So, first we're gonna invert all the colors. So to do that, we press Command I. So the black goes to white, white goes to black. And then, we are going to change our color mode that we're working in to CMYK. So normally, when you do stuff digitally, it works in like RGB, because that's how like screens work, is using RGB, but printers use CMYK. So we want to change our color mode to CMYK because we're getting ready to print this. So we want it to be all ready for our printer. So we're gonna go to image mode, and we're gonna switch from grayscale to CMYK to get it ready for printing. And that's gonna flatten everything, and that's okay because we just need this one thing. And that's fine. You just gotta trust it. Okay, so it flattens everything, but now we are in a CMYK color space. So instead of adjusting levels using RGB, we can adjust them using CMYK. So we are going to, let's see. We're gonna cut the inverted art onto its own layer. Actually, yes. So we're gonna press Command A to select all of this whole image, Command X to cut it, and then Command V, and it will create a new layer. And and then the background's supposed to be white. Maybe this needs an update because I go back and like uninvert the background so that it's white again behind this layer, because ultimately we are gonna want it to be white so that when we print it, it's not gonna print the whole background. So I have my inverted art on one layer and then my white background on the layer underneath it. And now I'm going to make a new layer. So I Command Shift N to make a new layer. And here's where we're going to create our color rich black. So we're going to call it CRB, color rich black. And right now that one is all transparent. If we turn the other ones off, it's just totally blank. And I'm going to actually keep it on like this so that we can see what's happening. And now we want to, our active color is here. Right now, our active color is white. It's also over here. We want to make our active color color rich black. So, I think we can edit it in here. Yeah, you can edit by just clicking on that color. You can also go to, window, select, and color. It's already on for me. That's why it's here. So I can edit it right here. If it's not on, you do the window select to have this menu be available. All right, and now I'm gonna click on my foreground color, and I'm gonna want to make this in the color rich black. So I see my CMYK here. Right now it's white, so they're all the way down at 1%. We want to make them all 100%, and this is gonna make it super, super dark black, like the most dark black you can make. And I press OK. So now this color here, the color that is active to be used, is gonna be color rich black. Now, yes, so we did all of that. Now I want to basically fill this layer that I called color rich black. I want to fill the entire layer with that color rich black that I just made. So I'm going to press G to get to the paint bucket tool. It's also over here if you don't know the shortcuts. And I'm going to fill it. Boom. So now it's all filled with color rich black. All right, now what we need to do is we're gonna create a layer mask. So basically the concept behind the next few steps is we have this color rich black all filled in. What we want to do is make a mask that will block out this entire color rich black layer except for where our image is. And so that's why we initially inverted the image, because now we're gonna like invert it again by making a mask. It's kind of confusing, but if you watch these steps, it will hopefully make more sense. So we are going to add a layer mask to this layer called CRB. So down here at the bottom, you have these little options. Right here is to add a layer mask. So a mask creates something like it's like you could think of it like a mask, like a layer over your layer, and then you can tell it like where you want things to show through on the mask. So only the holes in the mask will be showing what's behind the mask, right? So we're gonna add a layer mask. And then what we're gonna want to do is make our layer mask look like this inverted layer we made before. So to do that, okay, we made our layer mask. Now we're gonna go back down to this layer and I'll adjust my visibility so you can see what I'm doing. I'm on this layer, the inverted layer. I'm gonna select everything, Command A. Did it select? Oh, it's because I'm, okay, Command A. You see the little ants all around it? And then I'm going to copy it. So Command C. Okay, so I just copied everything in that layer. Now I want to put this into my mask, but it can be a little bit confusing how to do that. So it's helpful to follow these steps here. So I'm in the layer, I click the layer called Color Rich Black, and I'll put it back on visible so we can see this image is all black. And then right here we have layers. Next to it we have channels. So when I click on channels, we can see here are like my color channels, and you can see they're all filled in because all of our CMYK is all at 100%. And then we have our mask here. So we're gonna edit the mask. First I'm gonna make it visible so that we can actually see what we're doing. Oops. And then I am going to paste my inverted image into the mask. So I already copied it. Now I just press Command V. Okay, and now we see our image, but it's in black and red. So what this means is the red is going to be where the mask is. The black is like holes in the mask. Okay, so the concept is once we set up this mask, then the color rich black will be like shining through the holes of the mask, which is where our art is, and everything else will be covered up. So, yes, so we did that. I like my mask, so I'll go back to layers. I think I had to press, oh, it's because I was still editing the mask. Okay, so now we have our mask. And if I put the background back on, so, and we don't need this layer anymore with our inverted image, so I just turn the visibility off. So now it looks like how it did at the beginning, right? But now what we can actually check out is if we go to the eyedropper tool, we can check if I click on this, that will set my foreground color. Well, let me show you like if I